Sometimes life gives you lemons, and all you can do is make some lemonade. This video was going to be about running. I was going to try to run a 5-minute mile, and Alexis was going to try to shave a minute off her mile time as well. However, Alexis recently broke a bone in her foot, and while that sucks, it has actually led us to work on what I think is a more useful project. That setback has forced us to look inwards and assess our lives and habits in a way that we've never done before. 5 strategies, which were heavily influenced by the book Atomic Habits, it's really good by the way, have been key in our recent breakthroughs, so let's discuss what habits we've added to our routines and what strategies helped us to make those habits stick. The first thing that we've been doing is focusing on who we want to be rather than what we want to achieve. Behavior that isn't aligned with the self will not last. Basically, you behaving in a way that's not you, well, you won't be able to maintain that new behavior for very long. So then, how do you start a new behavior or habit? Well, you have to change your identity. Really, you have to change the way that you view yourself. If someone offers you a cigarette but you've recently quit smoking, it's far more powerful to say, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker," rather than "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." This statement indicates a shift in your identity. You no longer view yourself as a smoker. This statement indicates that you still view yourself as a smoker, just one who recently stopped. Your identity is really just a combination of all of your own thoughts about yourself. If you think of yourself as a runner, it's going to be easier to get off the couch and do that run compared to the guy who's just a guy, but one who happens to run a few times a week. So how do you build that new identity that you want? Well, the only way is through repetition. Every time you get off the couch and run, that's one more vote towards you becoming an actual runner. If you get enough of those mental votes in your own brain, eventually you'll view yourself as the new you, in this case, a runner. Whatever your identity is right now, you only believe that it is that because you have proof. You'll essentially need to prove to yourself through consistent repetition that you are that new person, that new identity. If you're proud to be a reader, you'll be far more likely to be someone who consistently reads. You need to have pride in your new habit and identity, or it won't stick. Speaking of being a reader, that's something I've wanted to be for a long time. There's just one problem though. I don't like reading books, or at least that's what I thought. This brings us to our next strategy, which is to use the 4 laws of behavior change. Law 1 is to make habits obvious, Law 2 is to make habits attractive, Law 3 is to make habits easy, and Law 4 is to make habits satisfying. So Alexis and I are business owners. We run an in-person personal training studio and have some online businesses as well. We're successful, but we're not that successful. The identity that we're starting to embody is one of a more successful business owner. We're looking at people like Alex Hormozy, Jordan Sayat, Andrew Huberman. We want to adopt some of the behaviors that helped make those people who they are. One thing you'll pretty much always hear those types of people say is that they read. A lot. Myself being a little bit of a dummy, well, before starting this 20-day journey, I didn't even know the last time I read a book. College, probably, maybe high school. Who the hell knows? I wanted to be a reader, and there's only one way to do that, and that's to read some damn books. This brings us back to those 4 laws of behavior change. If you want to do something new, you have to make it obvious. If you want to learn an instrument, that instrument needs to be in plain sight often. If you want to be a runner, have those running shoes, smartwatch, and shorts set out the night before, ready to be used the next morning, and have them front and center to everything you're doing. If you want to be a reader, that book needs to be in a place where you're forced to look at it very often. To some extent, reading is already an attractive habit to me. People who read on a regular basis always seem to have their together, and like we said, most of the super successful people you know of read a lot. Another way to make a habit attractive is by habit stacking. Over this 20-day span, we read every night for at least 30 minutes on our comfy couch, and we did that while sipping our trusty diet hot chocolate with whipped cream. The reading was the habit we needed to do, the diet hot chocolate with whipped cream and chilling on the comfy couch were the other habits that we stacked alongside it. The third law is to make it easy. When you're just starting to build a new habit, things do have to be on the easier side. You don't start learning to swim by jumping into the deep end of the pool. You don't learn to run before you can walk. For increasing how much reading we were doing, like I said, we set aside 30 minutes each night. That was as much as we thought we could get done. Some nights we got extra reading time in, but 30 minutes was the minimum. The 4th law of behavior change is to make it satisfying. If a habit or behavior isn't satisfying, you won't keep doing it. If you're becoming a reader or a runner, you might cross a day off the calendar better each day that you successfully complete that habit. There is something satisfying of having a visual record of your progress. Maybe every time you get 5 days in a row, you and your significant other get to go out to a nice dinner. Little rewards like these help to keep your motivation high in the beginning, and that's good, because initially when starting a new habit, you do need to be motivated. That said, motivation is kind of bullshit. And our next strategy, which is to prioritize consistency over motivation, will explain why that is the case. In our last video where we trained for 100 days straight, we said no one is motivated all of the time. What matters is how consistent you're willing to be. This is 100% true. Motivation may help you start, but you need to be willing to be consistent to make actual change. If you only did your job on days where you were motivated to work, how successful would you be? Would you expect to get a promotion if you only worked when you were really motivated? Of course not. The people who get promotions show up and do their best each day, even if they don't feel like it. And keep in mind, doing your best each day doesn't necessarily mean you're hitting a home run each time you take a swing at a new habit. Sometimes just showing up and doing your best is good enough. Missed days hurt you more than perfect days help you. If you get 1% better at something every day, by the end of a year, you'll be 37 times better than you were at the start. Small habits compound in a meaningful way if you're willing to prioritize consistency and getting in the reps. My only warning with all this is to not expect your improvement to necessarily look like this. Oftentimes your progress will look more like this, which is hard because that means you won't see many of the benefits from your new habit until much later on after the effect has compounded a bit. Strategy number 4 is less open-ended than the previous ones. Instead, we went after the lowest hanging fruit and attacked that weak link. Strategy number 4 is to reduce phone screen time by 25 to 50% and to use that leftover time to build your new habit. At the end of the day, there might not be anything more addictive than this little device right here. According to the old Google, the average person spends about 7 hours looking at screens and almost 4 hours on their phones each day. And I'm willing to bet for most of you watching right now, your phone screen time is at least this high. Now, I'm not saying that spending some time on your phone is bad. Of course, I'm biased, but here you are watching what I think is a positive and helpful video. Also, I think some time spent vegging out after a long day of work and watching some YouTube or TikTok is totally fine and maybe even healthy. However, there is a limit to how much of this is actually good for you. We all know that. So if we took my average phone time, about 4.5 hours daily, and divided it by 2, that would give me 2 hours and 15 minutes to work on one or more habits. I could use 1 hour of that time for exercise, 45 minutes to read, and 30 minutes to get organized for the next day or even week. And that still leaves me with 2 hours and 15 minutes of phone time, more than enough to satisfy those desires without wasting too much time. The KISS principle, or keep it simple stupid, is incredibly powerful. This strategy is simple, and if you're willing to make some short-term sacrifices, in this case literally sacrificing a little bit of screen time, you'll be able to reap those long-term rewards. One thing that's improved for me a lot specifically over the last 20 days is my sleep quality. Like many of you watching, I live a fairly hectic life. There is always something going on, some thought in my head that won't go away. Spending some time reading before bed and less time staring at a screen has helped me to quiet some of those thoughts down, and like I said, that's led to better sleep. My life, while a bit better, is still pretty crazy though, and even if you change your habits, yours probably will still be too. Which brings us to our next point in strategy. There is never a perfect time to start a new habit, so start now. Working as a personal trainer for over 10 years has taught me a lot, but one thing often stands out. People usually want to wait for the perfect time to start something new. They feel the need to let those stars align, but like we said, there is no perfect time. The stars never align. If it's November 10th and you want to lose weight, but you're going to wait until the new year to get started because at that point it'll be easier, well, that decision can have some pretty negative consequences. How much weight will you gain in the next month and a half? Also, is it really going to be that much easier in the new year? January and February aren't the best months weather-wise for most of the country. You think you're not going to want to sit inside and eat some comfort foods on some of those days? How much harder will it be to get outside and move when the weather sucks? This isn't to say that you shouldn't start a new habit with the new year. All I'm saying is the best time to start a new habit is now. Like we said before, when starting a new habit, you don't have to be perfect. Each time that you do that thing that you're trying to improve, it's one more mental vote counting towards your new self, your new identity. You will cast some votes towards bad habits too. Just like in a real election, you don't need to win all the votes, just the majority. So start casting those votes, putting in those new reps, and building that new habit and identity. There is never going to be a perfect time to start, so start now. I'd highly recommend that all of if you check out the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Again, it's really good, and we only covered a small amount of the helpful information in it in this video. We own the audiobook and the written one as well, and if you're interested and want to support this channel, you can purchase either copy from our Amazon affiliate store. Also, liking this video and subscribing to the channel really does help this channel to grow, and that does allow me to create more free content for all of you. So please consider doing that too if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching, everyone, and make sure to check back in a month because this is only one chapter in a sorta healthy lifestyle.